the technique kept bringing me back to these, revealing this dark behavior that we have as a species. And I hope that it really translates and you feel that sense of discovery that I do when I'm making it. I hope it gets you excited to discover a piece of art or an image. That's really the whole point.
Can you talk a little bit about the technique? Because there's a lot of artists here, but I've had a lot of artists coming in that are just baffled. It's like, well, how does it get dark if it's white paint? It's like, well, think about it.
Right. So it's all white paint, some with white ink, mostly just gesso. And I really took a long time refining this technique and finding out all the little variations and possibilities with it. But essentially it's simple. The thicker the paint, the more light it blocks out. So you can build it up slowly and get these really deep values and shading, or you can slap it on thick and block it out and carve back into it and carve the light out of it. And it's really a medium I think everyone should just try once. Just light up a canvas and start making marks, and you will instantly just be amazed by every little tiny thing you touch just shows up, and it's a blast of a process.
So that answered one of the questions that's frequently asked. Does he do it while it's lit?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, well, I would guess he would.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm telling you, it's a fantastically fun experience to sit in a dark room with a lit canvas and start drawing, and start painting, and start mark making.
So one of the things that struck me as both a human being of this earth and an artist was the first time realization that we talk about religious denominations, and we also use that same word for currency denominations. And I was like, how the heck did we get there?
Yeah, right.
And that you were able to put that actually into a piece in such a unique way. And that's one of the reasons why I've tried to get so many people down here, is because, you know, pictures don't do it justice, video doesn't do it justice. It's really the kind of this slap upside the head sort of awareness of, oh, wait a minute, who are we? And why are we the way we are?
And I'm glad you say that, because with most interactive art, it relies so heavily on computers and screens, and I didn't want to do something like that. I am interested in physical paintings. I want it to be interactive, but I want it to be a physical painting or sculpture. You know, something you can touch and you can discover, because we all have enough screen time in our lives. You know, I'm not interested in computer-driven art. I want hands-on physical art.
And a lot of what you poke fun at in the art is the screen time, our
Sure.
just obsession and addiction to the screen time, while I'm sitting here holding a camera, recording a video, you know, to document this. But we are just absolutely addicted. I would love to know more about your self-portrait, because people come in here and it's like, is that Dan? Of course, you've had a lot of coworkers and friends and family come in, and I'm like, yeah, that's Dan. Don't you recognize him? So tell us a little bit about this topsy-turvy distortion.
Okay, so this is the duality of self-portrait. And it's just a portrait of the duality of humanity. we all live in two worlds. We have the outside world, and then we have the world in our head. And so this portrait shows one eye closed, one eye open, living in two worlds at the same time.
Okay. Well, anybody else have any art specifically related questions? Not the ones that I handed out, but Rick?
Yeah, on this one over here, the profitable profit. Yeah. That seems very similar to the kind of message of recycled propaganda downtown, even though it's got a completely different impact and technique because of the duality in the same piece. Because my original question was, even though in this relationship, Nancy's the gallery owner and you're the artist, I'm always fascinated on, you know, first the chronology, the development of an individual artist over time, but particularly with this gallery and what Nancy's trying to curate, how artists interact and how that shared vision synergistically creates an exponential effect. So I'll compound them and say, how do you think a conversation with recycled propaganda with that piece might lead to other, you know, local impact?
Future collaboration, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I think the use of symbols is just powerful for all of us. We grow up with these symbols, whether they're religious or advertisements or logos. Symbols are made to catch you, and they're made for recognition. And as far as overlapping styles, I think there's several artists that always use these symbols to show whatever message they want to put across, because it's so easily recognizable to everyone.
Like Warhol, for example.
Sure, Warhol, definitely. And recycled propaganda, he is on a very similar message, I would say, with just pointing out the hypocrisy of society.
And also paring it down to its, you know, smallest or least detailed components where you still get the message quickly because of the way he works. But I could see this as a big mural, you know, with stencil, spray paint. But then, how would you get the other effect with, you know, there's always a way. Yes, there's always a way. So I'm going to walk you over, because Rick reminded me of something, and again, back to the relationship that I have with the artists that come in here, is I get really excited about art, and so this piece here, Raise Another, R-A-Z-E, is the impetus for this entire show. This was part of last year's Use Other Door, the 4th annual Use Other Door, and we were in the old gallery space upstairs. Massive amount of light, 14 skylights, huge corner windows, and there was no way to show this piece in that space without creating a pipe and drape enclosure that we then put this in. And when I knew I was, you know, signing the lease for this space downstairs, I asked Dan, it's like, can we do a whole show? And, you know, thinking in terms of the speed at which this show came together, because that piece was part of the show that was upstairs. It ended September, you know, 30th of last year, and then we opened in last month, and we've got a whole show. That doesn't usually happen. So, you know, part of it is the willingness and the dedication and discipline of the artist, but also sometimes the, you know, burr under the saddle, or say, give me, please give me, I gotta have this. And so, you know, tell us a little bit about how that turned into all of this.
Okay, so, well, yeah. These three actually were the three originals, the ones that work off of remote control. That was me refining the technique, basically. just funny, crazy, dark images that I have, you know, that really work with the technique. It was all about where's the light coming from, because, you know, that's what I wanted to focus on. So those were the starting points. But then when I moved to the larger light boxes, I realized, oh, there's so much more I can do. There's so much more detail, so much more refining that can be done. And it excited me, so I didn't have a problem working on these and knocking them out. I mean, every day I have an idea for a new one, and it's just like, I don't have the time all the time, but yeah.
Shannon wasn't in the background going, Dan, Dan,
right.
you know.
Go to the grocery store. But yeah, it was a quick process, but like people ask me, okay, how long did it take to do that? I have no idea.
Right.
Once I start painting in my room, I like have no concept of time. I just get lost in it. And speaking of Shannon, she usually puts a little knock on the door and says, hey, you haven't eaten in 8 hours, here's a sandwich.
Thank heaven for our spouses, right?
Definitely. So, yeah, it's just, it's fun to create, and it's not
a burden. It's not a burden.
Time.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no time. You know, I'm just working and having fun and discovering new things.
All right. Any other art-related questions about the show before we dive in? Yeah.
Dan, do you sketch out your drawing before you decide on what you're going to do?
So yeah, I sketch out the placement and the well, like this one here, that is my sister and my brother-in-law, and I called them up and said, okay, I've got an idea for a painting of a couple embraced but robbing each other. And I told them what I wanted them to be doing, and then they sent me a few pictures to work off of. So, yeah, most of them are plotted out at least and sketched out before I begin.
And you had a...
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Something like that is so specific, I would think you worked off a photograph.
Yeah.
So you found a couple of people to model for you.
That's my other sister. Yeah. And yeah, that one, I couldn't quite capture that expression on her face, but she had this heartbreaking expression, and he had this overconfident expression. But then she has this little smirk starting in the corner of her mouth, like she's the boss.
Well,
you got her right where she wants to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And because you know her, so
she's the boss.
Yeah, so it's like you get to translate. Before I again switch, I want to ask about. So I was asking you about color. And then this piece shows up, and very abstracted, which is so different from the figurative work. So I know there were a lot of experimentations with this piece, and lots of fun. I'm going to take the flashlight. Let me grab this flashlight because I'm going to show some of the white paint that's actually on here without trying to blow things out too much. No, it's gonna do it because everything's in the dark, but. So, again, you're processing coming from very figurative to this abstract play.
Right, and this one is basically it demonstrates my process. So I wanted to find out if I can do color or if it would bleed through and show up on a white surface. So that was the first part of this experiment. But this is how I work when I don't have it planned out. I just start playing and finding the texture and finding out what tools and what movements create what kind of shading, and that's what I build off of for the other pieces. So if I want a nice crisp line, I know how to get it. If I wanted some gentle, smooth shading, I know how to get it.
Right.
And it's just through playing on canvas where you find that out.
So is this like a thin wash behind, or is this, again, your pigments that you're moving around, or is this paint or ink?
The color on the background is spray paint.
Okay, okay. And that's directly under the white layer, or?
It's right on the back of the canvas.
Okay, that was my next question.
Yeah, but it's pretty thin. And the gesso on the top surface of the canvas hides it.
Okay, okay. All right, everybody, pull your little sheets out, and who wants to ask a question first? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, what's integral to the work of an artist?
What's integral to the work of an artist? And I'll take that and put that back in the bowl. I thought I had the bowl over here.
It's all about where you find your passion. I mean, that's the only way to do it, is find your passion and chase it. And you can't go wrong, you know? Do what you love. For me, I'm obsessed with finding new materials and new techniques. That's all I want to do, is just play with stuff, figure out how it works, come up with a concept, find the materials that work with that concept, and just build on it. And you know, it's finding your passion. You know?
Okay, since you're there, I'm going to start with you, or make you next.
Name something you hate. Name something you hate and why.
Is it a hate about the art world, or just hate in general?
Name something you don't love and why.
You don't love
Okay,
and why.
okay. Something you don't love and why.
I don't know how to answer that.
Ooh, trick questions.
I mean, obviously I'm a cynical person, but I still kind of love everything, you know? Because even if it's horrible, it's interesting and you can learn from it. So I don't know that I hate anything.
And there's probably something funny to be found in it.
Oh, there's always.
You know, yeah. To poke fun at,
Sure. That's how we cope most of the time.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, who's next? Ira?
Yeah. Hey, James, what other jobs have you done other than being an artist?
GES.
What other jobs other than being an artist?
I had a lot of jobs. I sold ice cream at the beach when I was a kid. Refinished antique furniture. I worked in an art supply store before I knew what any of this stuff did. The best job ever, though, was working at an ice cream parlor and the kids getting off of school and coming by, and this place was brand new and nobody was coming in, nobody knew about it. So one day I see these kids going by, I'm like, hey, come on, free ice cream. And the owners loved me after that, because those kids came in every single day with the $2 from their parents after that. That was a fun job.
Marketing. Okay, who's next?
You gonna go? You can go.
Yeah.
You want to? Go ahead. You gotta get over here and say it loud.
So, yeah.
Can you read it? What is it?
What do you like about your work?
What do you like about your work? Put that back in there. Thank you.
Well, I gotta say, with this show, I really love just sitting back and watching people play with it and discover it. To me, that was the coolest. Watching people trying to figure this one out. And like it's nothing, it's nothing. What? And then finally, at the last second, they find it. I don't know. I just love watching people discover it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next.
What do you dislike about the art world?
Okay.
That it's not honest and straightforward.
As a whole, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a complicated mess, and it's tough to navigate, and I have no interest in trying to. So probably a bit to my detriment, but that's not what it's about for me. I'm just exploring.
Okay, Glenn.
So Dan, my question is, what's your background? But I want to ask you something a little bit more specific. Are you a self-taught artist, or have you had art training before?
Yeah, so I am self-taught. I went to art school for graphic design, and it was all computer-based, and I really quickly realized I didn't want to do that.
So the techniques that you're using are techniques that you've developed on your own, and what I love about your innovation is that as you explained to me a little earlier, that it was almost a happy accident, and I found that the same thing that's happened to me on a few occasions where I've had a piece that I just wanted to throw in the trash, and all of a sudden you have something that transpires that, oh my God, I can't do that. And that's what, how did you come to really feel your first real accomplishment in art?
So I am self-taught through experimentation by necessity, and it's that curiosity that drives me, and curiosity is what feeds discovery and creativity. It's just that spark. And so my obsession of finding new techniques comes from just playing with materials and exploring them, and it's just so fascinating how you can come up with so many different sorts of techniques using white paint, or using chalk. It's really freeing just to play and have no expectations and see what happens and discover things by accident, and then use them later on where they work. Develop those accidents.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Dan, what role does the artist have in society, would you say? Ooh. And we're not talking bread roll.
Well, it's up to the artists, I guess. You are sharing part of you with the world. So what do you want to share? I want to share my love of discovering art. So I want to make art people have to work at a little bit. I want to make art that kind of excites them and makes them feel some sort of discovery themselves. That's tough, because the role of an artist is so many things. It's teacher, it's entertainer, it's comforter, it's anything that an artist wants it to be. It's just sharing a piece of yourself with the world.
Yeah. Advocate, provocateur, you know, all these things that make us.
Yeah, you could be a shock artist.
Yeah,
but that's what you want.
But you know, every piece of art is the invitation for dialogue and conversation. And what do we want to talk about? So, let's see, Debbie.
Hi, Dan. Well, my question is, what inspires you? Is there a type of music or food, or obviously family must play an important role in your inspiration, and perhaps the experiment itself?
So, yeah, music, definitely. I have to have music on when I'm working, and it's funny, you'll hear like a lyric, or you'll read a passage in a book, and you'll play with that, and you'll break it down, and you'll rebuild it, and it becomes something else. And that happens a lot of the time. And yeah, there's a lot of inspiration from my family. Mostly they're just really cheap models. So that's why they feature a lot, because they're free. But yeah, definitely, like this one here is my niece, who loves catching frogs, and I love her view of the world at that age and how anything is possible. And I just wanted to celebrate that idea of just catching frogs and exploring the world.
All righty. Oh,
One
Rick's got one more question?
Yeah, the one, the gentleman here that looks like he's either playing the guitar or being shot.
Trigger warning.
Well,
Yes,
that's true.
that's the name
No, that's not the point. I was going to ask you about this. It reeks George Gershwin to me, Porgy and Bess, and Rhapsody in Blue. So I was going to ask about the music influence. And the one in the center over here that looks like it's expressive in a war-shot test. When I see a couple of female figures on the right-hand side, reeks of Chagall, in particular to me in the spiritual nature of that. And so it's pretty clear, besides, you know, the pretty obvious messaging of psychopropaganda, that they're subtle as well as not so subtle. That's why it inspired me. If she hadn't asked the question, to ask the question on the person.
Thank you. Yeah, no, music is important, and other art is important, and books are important. Everything influences us every day. The amount of screen time we have influences us, and I don't think we're learning much from it. We can find any answer we want about any topic we want, and we're still dumb. And it's frustrating, and I want like a more tangible, real experience, and you know, the theme of this show is this art cannot exist without you, and no art can exist without an audience. You know, music has to be heard, books need to be read, everything needs to be observed or experienced in order to become real. And I don't want to like get on a soapbox, but I mean the screen time is just killing our creativity. We are experiencing so much and nothing at the same time. And
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dan. continue to enjoy and you know, probe his brain. It's worth probing. And talk to the other people that are here too, because a good chunk of the guests are artists themselves. Glenn is an artist, Rebecca who just came in, Erica, Debbie, and probably some other people that I don't know are artists here. So, you know, engage in those conversations. It's important because we are the storytellers in unique ways. I'm always saying I paint what I can't say, and I think Dan's kind of doing similar, where he's very pointedly having this conversation in ways that he doesn't have to use his words. So anyway, thank you, Dan. Thank you for bringing this show to the gallery, the space. Dan is going to be joining me and the gallery and a couple of other artists, including Glenn and Kim Johnson, up in Reno in September at the Reno Tahoe International Art Fair. Very excited about that. So we still have to figure out what you're doing, what we're bringing, but I think we can get it figured out. Not going to be able to do the illuminated stuff the way I'd like, but unless you've got really vibrant backlights, light boxes. But anyway, thank you all for coming. If you're not already on the gallery's email list for newsletters, there's a little tablet right behind, or right on the antique hall tree. Please sign up, and thank you again. It takes a village for all of this to happen, and we don't exist as a gallery without you. You know, that's the reality. You know, this does not happen without all of you. So thank you.